Okay, so today I'll be talking about illegal immigration. My opponent's claim was that illegal immigration helps the U.S. economy. His three secondary claims were: 1, illegal immigration leads to labor specialization; 2, illegal immigration is important in preventing economic decline; and 3, illegal immigration is an overall asset to the U.S. economy. My opponent's main problem was that he attempted to create a cause and effect relationship between illegal immigrants and the U.S. economy, but lacked evidence and did not use the evidence correctly to support his claim and secondary claims. I'd like to clarify that my opponent's secondary claims had multiple reasoning points, and for the sake of time, I only selected 2 of his reasoning points to challenge. As a reminder, his first secondary claim was that illegal immigration leads to labor specialization. He supported this claim by saying that labor specialization increases factory productivity, allows workers to choose what they want to specialize in, doesn't force illegal immigrants to compete for the same jobs as natural-born citizens, and Americans will receive an income gain. The 2 reasonings I decided to challenge are: A, labor specialization increases factory productivity, and B, illegal immigrants don't compete for the same jobs as natural-born citizens. Statistics from Ball State University's Center for Business and Economic Research concluded that factory productivity is not increasing due to increased human specialization, but due to technological advances. Within the study done last year, it's found that besides trade, the vast majority of job losses within factories were taken by robots, and the need for human labor decreased. An example of this would be General Motors. They now employ barely a third of the 600,000 workers it had in the 1970s, yet it churns out more cars and trucks than ever before, thus concluding that illegal immigrants cannot be developing labor specialization and increasing factory productivity if factory jobs are declining. The other reasoning under my opponent's first secondary claim was in response to illegal immigrants are not competing for the same jobs as natural-born citizens. However, in a data table from the U.S. Census Bureau of 2016, concludes that of the 26 million employed illegal immigrants, 31% work in business, 24% in a service job, 16% in sales and office, 13% in construction and maintenance, and 14% in production, transportation, and material moving. This meaning that illegal immigrants do seek and have jobs that natural-born citizens seek to have as well. Moving on, as a reminder, his second secondary claim was that illegal immigration is important in preventing economic decline. He supported this claim by reasoning that foreign workers do not crowd up jobs, larger populations increase consumption and production demands, and removing illegal immigrants will create a labor shortage. The 2 reasonings I have decided to challenge are: A, foreign workers do not crowd up jobs, and B, removing illegal immigrants will create a labor shortage. In response to foreign workers not crowding up jobs, Stephen A. Karamoda, who is the Director of Research at the Center for Immigration Studies, says that the Bureau shows that as of November, there were 1.5 fewer Native American-born workers than in 2007, while 2 million more immigrants were working. Thus, all net employment gains since 2007 have gone to immigrants. This meaning that foreign workers are replacing natural-born citizens in the workforce and are crowding jobs. The next reason under my opponent's secondary second claim is that removing illegal immigrants will create a labor shortage. All the results of my research agreed with this reasoning, but a better point my opponent would have made would have been the direct result correlated with actually removing illegal immigrants. According to the Center of Migration Studies, 6.6 million U.S.-born citizens, 5.7 million of whom are children under 18, living with someone who is undocumented would be affected, and the U.S. would carry a financial burden of $118 billion to raise just 1/3 of those citizens removed due to deportation. This meaning it won't necessarily create a labor shortage, but it will detrimentally affect the children who are U.S. citizens and parents who are not. And finally, my opponent's third secondary claim was that illegal immigration is an overall asset to the U.S. economy. He supported his claim by saying that removing illegal immigrants could trigger an economic recession. It would cost between $200 to $300 billion to remove every illegal immigrant. DACA is a temporary fix, and illegal immigrants still pay more taxes than natural-born citizens. The 2 reasons I have decided to challenge are: A, DACA is a temporary fix, and B, illegal immigrants still pay more taxes than natural-born citizens. My opponent really wasn't clear as to how DACA directly correlated with his main claim of how illegal immigrants help the U.S. economy. He primarily focused on the $500 fee that is required to obtain DACA. However, in an interview with Doris Messner, Senior Fellow and Director of the U.S. Immigration Policy Program at the Migration Policy Institute, explains how the money from the fees goes to an agency called United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. That processes their applications and the cost of doing the fingerprints, the costs of the card being produced, and work authorization card. This meaning that DACA is being used to pay for the resources needed to produce the card and not a direct source of income that the U.S. government is making off of illegal immigrants going to school. The other reasoning under my opponent's third secondary claim was that illegal immigrants pay more taxes than natural-born citizens. In my research, I found that illegal immigrants do pay taxes, but my opponent had no proof that they showed that they paid more than a natural-born citizen. In a report published by the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, they revealed how undocumented immigrants are taxpayers too, and collectively contribute an estimated $11.7 billion to state and local taxes. A better argument would have been illegal immigrants do pay taxes but are not eligible for as many benefits due to the fact that they do not have a social security number. In conclusion, I challenged my opponent's claim that illegal immigration helps the U.S. economy by providing counter evidence that proved his three secondary claims, which were 1, illegal immigration leads to labor specialization, 2, illegal immigration is important in preventing economic decline, and 3, illegal immigration is an over asset to the U.S. economy. Thank you.
Well, it's easy to follow. You've got a lot of structural signposting as you go through, which I appreciate. The first point, the argument really talks about labor specialization, and you've got a good generic argument about technology being the main source of increased productivity, and then you do have good information that suggests that they are likely to be competing for the same kinds of jobs. So I thought that that was directly relevant to the first point and contradicts that first point. Now, after that, things get a little bit trickier because instead of taking a contrary position, frequently you have places where you are suggesting an evaluation of the advocate's argument rather than a refutation of the argument. For instance, on the second point, you suggest that there's an actual savings of money by allowing illegal immigrants to stay here and care for the legal citizens that are their children. In essence, we save a bucket load of money because we don't have to pay for their care and upkeep. So in essence, that's an argument for the advocate side of the argument instead of a contrary position that you're taking. The fact that you've given them a better argument does not necessarily help the position that you're taking. And I've said it before, it would be like the defense attorney saying to the prosecutor, "Oh, why did you present the fingerprint evidence that shows that my client is here?" That's not really helping your position here. And you have the same thing on the other point. I think there's a better argument on both of these points, and one is that, like on the argument here about the economic impact, there should be an explanation about what the economic impact is of illegal immigration on the economy that is negative. The resources that we have to be utilized, things that have to be paid for, the increased population. For example, that the notion that we don't care for those 6.6 million kids already is a little bit problematic because if those folks are working at relatively low-paying jobs, then they probably have to get supplemental assistance. And even though they're not entitled to supplemental assistance, their children who are citizens are entitled to that, and those kids are only there because of the illegal immigration that's going on. So that's a cost, a net negative cost. And then the same thing about the tax burden, the comparison about how much they pay in taxes doesn't take into consideration about how much they utilize in resources. I think that's probably the argument that would work better for you on those particular points. All right, thank you.